90% of people don't understand the time value of money. That's why they get ripped off. That's why they get deceived. I want to ask you a question. The answer to the question I'm going to ask will have two options. I want you to choose one of these two options. I will either give you $100 today or $100 after 1 year. Which one would you choose? This question might seem simple to you, almost all of you. In fact, it should be all of you. You would choose the $100 today. Why do we choose the $100 today? Yes, you guessed it right, inflation. Today's $100 is worth more than the $100 a year later. Now let's make the question a little harder. You still have two options. I will either give you $100 today or $115 after 1 year. Now, which one would you choose? Not all of you gave the same answer to this question. Some of you would want to take the $100 right away. Some would choose the $115 a year later. So what divided you and made you decide? Those who like a bit of risk, those who say, I can make a 15% profit on my money within a year, will choose the $100 today, because they will say, let's take the $100 today, and I will already make it more than $115 after a year. But those who don't trust themselves much or don't like taking risks will choose the $115 a year later. So who will actually benefit? You cannot answer this without understanding the time value of money. I want to explain the time value of money to you so that you can understand how the value of many financial products is determined. Let's say today is year 0, and I've invested $100 in an investment fund for 1 year. What will be the value of today's $100 after 1 year if we assume a return rate of X%? If we assume that the return is X%, then after 1 year, my money will be $100 times 1 plus X. Here's the scenario in numbers. Imagine you have $100 and you invest it in a fund with a 20% return rate for 1 year. Your new amount will be $120 and your profit will be $20. You calculated it quickly, didn't you? Now, if you invest your money in the same fund at the same rate for the second year, your initial amount will be $120. Again, you get a 20% return. How much profit do you think you'll make this time? Surely most of you got the right answer. Your profit will be $24, and your total amount will be $144. This is where the concept of compound interest comes into play. Your initial amount always grows and new money is added, allowing you to earn more profit. The formula for compound interest that you currently see on the screen represents this concept. Here, T represents the time period, X represents your return rate, or represents the initial amount you invested, and Y represents the amount you have at the end of the time period. So this formula actually shows the future value of your initial amount A. We've learned how to find the future value of money today. But how can we find the present value of money in the future? Let me explain this to you very simply. Notice that we reversed the process we did earlier. In the first process, we went from the present to the future. In this process, however, we want to go from the future to the present. So we're reversing the process. Now, let's recall our elementary school knowledge. What is the opposite of addition? Yes, you're right, it's subtraction. And what is the opposite of multiplication? Exactly, the opposite of multiplication is division. Therefore, the new process, which will allow us to find the present value of money in the future, will be as you see on the screen. When we resort to numbers, understanding becomes much easier. Let's convert our first example into numbers. My $100 today became $120 in 1 year with a 20% return. So, if I apply this operation to $120 and divide it by 1 plus 0.2, what do I get? Of course, $100, which is the present value of the future, $120. You can also find the present value by applying the same operation to $144. Now, let's go back to our initial question and add a few parameters. In an environment where the annual return rate is 20%, I'll either give you $100 today or $130 in 1 year. Which one would you choose now? Even the most confident in taking risks among you knows that $130 in 1 year is the correct choice. Yes, now you all have chosen the correct option because you now understand the time value of money. You are now knowledgeable individuals. And remember, we live in an age where knowledge is power. It was easy to see that. Now, I'll ask you another question. Imagine you are in an environment where the annual return rate is 20% again. Which do you think is more valuable, $100 today or $170 in 3 years? I guess this time we'll need to use the formula. So let's do that. When I apply the formula you see on the screen, I find that the value of $100 in 3 years is $172.80. So, the $100 to be given to me today is $2.80 valuable than the $170 in 3 years. This is the time value of money. In fact, this is also the value of time in terms of money. In any environment where interest rates or returns are high, time is valuable. If interest rates and returns are low, then time is less valuable. Of course, in terms of finance, time is always the most valuable asset, because lost time cannot be recovered. Let's say you want to calculate the time value of your money not on an annual basis, but on a monthly, weekly, or daily basis. Let me show you how to do that right away. You see our formula. Here, T represented my time period. X represents my return rate. If you want to calculate your return on a monthly basis instead of annually, then you need to write the number of months instead of the time period T. Similarly, you should adjust the return rate X to reflect the monthly return rate. If you want to calculate on a weekly basis, then you should write the time period T in terms of weeks and adjust the return rate X accordingly to the weekly rate. So what if you want to calculate on a daily basis? Exactly the same. You write the time period T in terms of days and adjust the return rate X to reflect the daily return rate. So as long as the time period T and the return rate X are in the same unit, there's no problem. Whether you want to calculate returns over 100 years or over seconds, it doesn't really matter to me. What matters is that you understand the time value of your money. Now it's time to put what we've learned into real-life practice. Let's say you own a house and you're renting it out. You've signed a 12-month lease for your property and rented it out for $1,000 per month. This means your tenant will pay you $1,000 at the end of each month for 12 months. Let's assume that in your country, the annual return rate is 24%, which translates to a monthly return rate of 2%. Do you think your tenant will pay you $12,000 or will it be less? Even though you can't calculate the exact amount off the top of your head, you're aware that your tenant won't pay you $12,000 but rather a bit less. Things are starting to look a bit grim, aren't they? If you're the landlord, you're feeling a bit disheartened right now. You're beginning to realize some things. If you're the tenant, you're feeling somewhat relieved, but you're silently praying that your landlord doesn't see this video. Now let's calculate the present value of these rents together. Take a look at the table in front of you, and you'll see the present value of all the $1,000 rents month by month. By the end of the first month, you've already lost $20. By the end of the second month, another $1.19 has slipped away. When we reach the last month, your tenant, who should have paid you $1,000, has only paid $788. Your tenant, who seemingly paid you $12,000 in total, has actually paid you only $10,574. You've made a profit of exactly $1,426. If you're the tenant, it's the opposite, you're the one who's profiting. You've practically lived rent-free for almost 44 days. If you understand the time value of money, you take a significant step in the field of financial literacy. Please, even if you think you've understood it thoroughly, watch this video from start to finish one more time. If you're saying, I didn't understand anything, watch the video repeatedly until you understand. Trust me, after understanding this video well enough, you'll realize that making money isn't a gamble. With the right strategies and methods, you can become wealthy. And once you've grasped this video well, understanding other financial information I'll share with you will be child's play. Don't forget to follow my channel to improve your financial literacy. Take care of yourselves.